Hundreds of Facebook testimonials prove how you can take just 3 pickets and start raking in the cash using my free plan planter boxes. With one single cut, I added an aesthetic and structural adjustment to the original 3 picket planter. And this simple tweak can be added to all the planter boxes you know and love. I ripped 2 slivers at 1 3/4 of an inch, just like before. These are for half of the legs and the mitered top. You guys see that push stick? Huh? You like it? Then I ripped the last section down to 1 1/8 of an inch. The remainder section should be 5/8 of an inch. Apparently, my picket tapered towards the top. And that's alright, that's okay. It's mostly scrap and always smart to have a sharp wooden stake around for vampires. One of the 1 3/4 inch boards I put aside. We need it at the very end. No, a little farther back. This makeshift story stick will save you loads of time. It's in a video from last year. I'll link it in the description. The other 1 3/4 inch boards we are cutting 4 times at 16 inches. Same goes for the 1 1/8 inch board. 4 cuts at 16 inches. That stick saves you time because you weren't busy looking for your tape measure. Do you see it? It's bright yellow. That adorable baby sliver, I cut 2 pieces at 12 inches. 1 and 2. Oops. Bring back that other 1 3/4 of an inch board and cut a 12 3/4 inch piece. Sorry. The last 2 pickets I stack on top of each other to create 4 14 inch cuts and 6 12 3/4 inch cuts. If you want to waste time putting all the pieces back into a picket shape, they'll look like this. Mama bird's got to feed her babies first. The big jug's mama bird, obviously. For all of my outdoor projects, I use a Titebond 3. It is exterior and waterproof. Titebond 2 will be an exterior glue. It is water resistant, not waterproof. I'm also using a 1-inch brad nail. That is a 1-inch brad nail. They're not galvanized. They're made by Bostitch. Nothing fancy, 1-inch brad nail. To get started, what we're gonna do is just remove the scrap pieces. Again, we are coming back to this board. I will show you how to fully cut that board out because a lot of people get hung up on that as well. This tiny little long sliver, it's trash. That board we're keeping. These boards we're keeping. At the other end of the board that's not on camera, all these little pieces, the tops, scrap. I'm gonna have 4 14-inch long pieces. I'm gonna have 6 that are 12 3/4. You will also have your 4 1 3/4 inch legs and 4 1 1/8 of an inch legs. You'll also have a sliver of 1 3/4 by 12 3/4. It is for the bottom. And then you're gonna have these small ledgers. To get started, I'm gonna take the 1 1/8 inch boards and my 14-inch long. Find whatever side you prefer to use. If you guys have cupping in your boards, I generally put those so they're up, so that they're on the outside versus the inside because it's harder for us to see them. A thin line of glue. Don't slather it on because our boards are very skinny. I'm gonna put it at the top, make sure these line up, nail them in place. Hey, sexy! He's got a facelift since the last video as well. Next side. Four nails into him. Looks good. You're gonna tip them up on a side like this. That is where you're gonna take the 1 3/4 inch board, glue him into place. I like it to face me because it's easier to see the lines. You can see I shoot these at a slight angle. If you went straight in, they're more liable to pull apart later on. So at an angle. My board's also a little cuppied. Beautiful. And we're going to repeat that for this other side here. And there is a finished side. A quick representation with the 14-inch board, I used the 1 1/8 of an inch with the 1 3/4 on the side. If I had reversed these, when I go to put my board to the side to glue it into place, I'm not going to have that much of a lip to bite into, and that's why I used the thinner board on the longer side and this guy on the shorter side. Watch how fast I can do this one. Woo doggy! With our beautiful two sides assembled, I'm going to take those smaller little 5/8 cut supports, bases, cleats, ledgers, whatever you want to call them, and I put them not so that my cut edge is up, but so that the rough picket side is up. That way, if they do tend to be cut a little small or something, my nail's not going to shoot through the outside because I know the thickness is correct. Little glue, center, inside of my 14-inch, couple nails. Why does this happen all the time? Now you'll see that they are not all the way to the edge. That's because there are boards that are about to go inside of here, and they don't need to butt up against these boards, because when I put my other board this way, this isn't where the structure needs help. It's in the center. Put them up like that. Glue down the centers. And again, if you have cupping, I put that down so that it's easier to nail. If I had it like this, the board's going to rock back and forth. Now I have 2 points that aren't attached to the bottom versus just one little center point that hopefully will work itself out. I line them up at the top first. Push it into place. Next one, a little bit of cupping, not bad. He goes in here as well. Smush everything together. And 3 nails into each board on each side. A little more glue, repeat that to this side here. Now we have a finished exoskeleton, and we're going to move on to the inside of the box. Get her centered in there. I'm going to take my glue and squirt it on the sides of these ledger, base, support, whatever you want to call them. Nice little squeezy. I'm going to take one of our 12 3/4 inch boards, put them in the side, take the other one, put them on the side, take our short, tiny 12 3/4, put them in the middle. If you wish to evenly space these, you can, just so you don't have such a gap. It doesn't need to be tight anyway. You're going to drill some holes for drainage. That just helps the drainage. Then you're going to try to shove your air nailer inside of here and nail these into place. Usually I bend my hose. Don't forget, your ledger doesn't go all the way to the outside, so I start my nail about 1 inch in for these and 2 in each bottoms. There we go. She's nailed. You'll see no nails sticking out the bottom, those ledgers. It's going to help support the box as well. And when you look, my 12 3/4 match the bottom 12 3/4 with the sides. So it's pretty easy peasy math. If you flipped them the other direction, you might have an issue. It might be longer than 12 3/4. So the 12 3/4, that's why we put the ledgers on these guys. Now, the sliver of wood we have left over is going to be mitered to cut in the top. So we're going to head on over to the miter saw. This was the second 1 3/4 inch piece that I had cut. So I do not have one of these little dog-eared picket ends. If you did have one of these, when you set up your saw, obviously you're going to cut in the same direction to remove this, so you just get a little tiny sliver. I did not do that. I used the center one. This has the 12 3/4 piece already cut off of it because it's in the planter box. So what I am going to do now, set my saw over to 45 degrees, and I'm going to cut this little piece off. Then I take my board, I flip it around so the miter's the other direction, slide it down just a little bit. Grab a tape measure and measure the top of my box. Here I am at 15 1/4. This way, 15 1/4. It should be square. However, if you do have cupping or bowing in your boards, especially the 14-inch long, it will add sometimes up to 1/4 inch in your box dimensions. So just make sure that your box is the correct size, and it just keeps all the miters nice and tight, keeps the lips equal, so you don't have a box that has a little lip and then a box with a really big lip, especially if someone's going to buy more than one box. 15 1/4, which means I'm just going to make mine to be about, let's just say 15 1/2. Maybe 15 5/8. It doesn't matter. 15 1/2. I'm going to line my board up on this side since that's the piece I am cutting. And now you should have 2 mitered ends that are going to fit onto your planter box. I'm just going to repeat this 4 times. I do not recut my miter at the beginning. I just flip the board over, put this board on top of it, slide it down, and then cut my next piece. And I'm going to do this until I have all 4 pieces. This last one here gets my fingers a little close, so I like to just flip them around. Now I have 4 pieces for the top and a little piece extra. I've seen a few comments where people will take these boards and they'll line them all up, make them look all pretty, and then they'll shoot a nail. That could help with your corners coming apart later on. I'll show you a way to not have that happen in a second. And it also helps when it's, you know, a nice square. You can set it right on top. You generally know where things are centered, so you're not slippering and sliding it around once it has glue on there. How I do it is where these 2 little points are at, I just know that that's where my board's going to intersect, is the inside, like that. And then as long as these 2 points are remotely even, so they don't stick out that far, that's where my board's got to go. Take your glue. I like to go around town. Bring it around town. Done. And then again, I set it in here. Bunk, bunk. Lay it down. That's almost exactly where it needs to go. And I do this one. And then I do this one. And then guess what? I do this one. I just check to make sure all my insides are the same lip. So they're not too close, they're not too far. Looking good. All my outside lips are the same. Bingo bango. I push these 2 down so that they run into each other, and I nail in 2 different directions. I do this into the meat of this board, that's why it's kind of closer to the outside. I do this all the way around. And then I put one in the center, and I do that. I feel with my thumb to find out how far in it needs to go. And then I just shoot the nail. You've got a large amount to hit, and I know it's not going to be within this first little section. It's going to be around right there. And I move my thumb, obviously, before I fire out the gun. Then I take a 1/4 inch bit. I drill one in the dead center and one about 4 inches away on the sides. Now, I drilled the holes closer to the inside because if you guys have these at your house and you're putting flowers in them and dirt, you better be doing that because it's your product. Hello. If the dirt clump dries up, when you go to water it, all that water is going to run down the sides of the dirt clump, straight to those holes, and leave your box. So I put all the holes closer to the center. I don't put them closer to the outside anymore. It's just because, you know, once you go to water it, that water is going to just run straight down and out the box as quick as possible. So I want it to get absorbed in that dirt clump, especially if you guys are not adding a liner to these. Now you know. And that's it, people. Right there. 3 Picket planters. Yeah! I've made an aesthetic and a structural improvement to the box. I was going to talk about it in the build, and I completely forgot. So, one, the edges match. That's why you have a 1 1/8 and a 1 3/4. Just so now they look more square. If you wanted to try to miter those, I guess go for it. I wouldn't have done it. But now that you don't have one that's weirdly long, so that's cool. And with that extra strip that I cut off, that is where we get the ledger, support, bracing, cleat, whatever you want to call it, in the bottom to just better support the weight of your dirt. Now, I have these boxes, the OG boxes. They've been outside for 3 years. They're holding on strong. I didn't even have to re-nail the bottoms yet. So nothing wrong with the old method. Just this one's a little better. And that's what we're trying to do. Just be a little better every day. And if you're still skeptical on if it's going to hold the weight of dirt, let me show you. Ta-da! While I stand high in my planter box, go check out my planter box playlist. All boxes have free plans, video tutorials, and even professional marketing photos that you can use for your business. And then hop on a Facebook woodworking page, type in Who's the Boss, and see a large number of testimonials of people just like you who have made a ton of money off of these boxes. It's going to change your life. Get to it.